You're listening to the Blacktop Banter podcast, the premier podcast in the asphalt industry, made for contractors with contractors.
Black Sabbath sings that.
How's that go again?
I just said, I'm going through changes.
Fucking nailed it.
Yeah, I know.
Should do that for the karaoke.
All right, so yeah.
Instead of the Spice Girls that you normally do. I mean, you're pretty good at that,
loves
too.
The Spice Girls, and that's how you win the crowd.
Yeah.
Yeah, internationally, really.
All around the world.
Black Sabbath was actually international, too.
Yeah,
that's where we digress. Welcome back to Blacktop Banter. This is what I think we're dubbing as like the final episode. I sent out a email this past month to a lot of our partners, a lot of people that had supported Blacktop Banter and myself throughout the years. And Chris was like, hey, we should do a final episode, because that email pretty much summed up how the year went for me, some issues that I had during the summer months, some big changes and a lot of different things. And I broke the news. Chris always asked me, like, well, Chris is here actually. You always ask me, like, hey, you know, why are we doing this? Do you enjoy doing this? What do you want to do? What do you enjoy? And we did that for like a year and a half, 2 years. And then finally I was like, hey, I don't really enjoy this so much, and I think it's not good for me very much longer. So then you were like, okay, cool, let's figure out how to land the plane. And we slowly land the plane. So here we are, right?
Here we are.
Yeah.
It's been a long journey.
Yeah, we went a lot of places, did a lot of stuff. Yeah. And I think we developed a good plan to like land the plane, as we put it. Seems like it's went fairly well. We're in the Blacktop Banter studio, which is actually in Wiscote now, as we just moved everything over here from the office to make it a little more efficient for me and whatnot. The crux of the email was we had a lot to do if we were going to do this, and it was a lot of pressure. I had a lot of life pressure, and in the middle of the summer, it really came to a culmination where I went to the hospital and was like, a couple times, yeah. And I remember calling you the first time. You're like, you know, hey, don't worry about it. We'll figure it out. You know, you'll get a hold of me when we get back. And yeah, after we got back and we started talking about it, and you're like, dude, I don't care about any of that. I don't care about whether we keep pushing, whether we keep going, doing whatever. Like, I just want you to be happy and like figure out
healthy.
Yeah, healthy, and where you're at. Which, you know, if you're happy, you're usually healthy.
One would hope.
Yeah, one would hope for the most part. So we thought, well, why not do a final episode and just kind of talk about it and the crux of it, and maybe go over kind of some of the stuff we did and the journey along the way. I know you're not a big fan of asking each other questions and whatnot, but when we conversate, we hang out quite a bit outside of Blacktop Banter and Wisco and everything else. Most of the time we're asking each other questions to keep a conversation going. So I was hoping we could kind of do that here.
Yeah, great. Do you want to delve in a little bit to how sort of the beginning of the process of landing the plane happened? Because I know for you, you've mentioned to me before, it was right around, it was like during trade show season, like you started to notice some things, and like, what were you noticing? Walk me and I guess the listeners through like sort of what that process was, where you were like, something's different here.
Yeah. So the, you know this is a trait about me. Like, if I commit to somebody or I'm involved with somebody in something, whether it's a partnership or an event or whatever, I'm usually going above and beyond to make sure that we hit our deliverables, we do what we're supposed to do, and I don't let anybody down. And although Blacktop Banter did some really cool stuff and we were able to do some cool things, we did kind of our first event in November with KM International, and I can remember when we were over there, I didn't really enjoy it as much as I thought I would, but that's because I was trying to make sure that our guest speaker was there on time, everybody had what they wanted for lunch, they were being able to ask KM the questions they wanted to, and then we had an event afterwards. I wanted to make sure everybody understood where we were going to go, what we were going to do, and I just felt really exhausted by the time we were done. Actually, enough so that after we did our meetup, I just started driving. I just got in my truck and I just drove around by myself. Right. And I don't think you were at that event with us.
I was not, yeah.
Right. So Kyla and I were there, and I just remember Kyla texting me like, where are you? I'm like, I'm just out. Like, I remember going to like a pool hall by myself, playing pool, trying to get my mind off of anything any way I could. And I was just like, well, you know, that's kind of not common, but it's happened from time to time where I just go for a drive and clear my mind. During that time, we were gearing up for the Blacktop Banter conference kickoff at Pavex. We partnered up with Jess and Amy and the squad over there, and they had a fantastic team. They were nothing but supportive. It wasn't lacking on anybody's side, except for us. It took a lot of securing partnerships, a lot of content posting on a schedule, and making sure the content directed people where to go, the Eventbrite app and whatnot, making sure everybody was registered. Then when we got there, how was this going to flow? The venue, getting everybody there. And it was a undertaking that I hadn't really experienced before. But it didn't seem like it was too much, mainly because in the asphalt business, I'm always trying to adapt. We have schedules going, and I'm always making up for mistakes that are going on and adapting on the fly. But for some reason, we did that event. We had our booth. We did a lot of stuff with the booth. We had Spencer Boyd there, who was a guest of ours, who stayed at the hotel.
Mark Estrada came by.
Yeah, Mark Estrada came by. And, I think Cisco, that was at World of Asphalt. So Mark Estrada came by then. And, people wanted to stop by and say, hey. People wanted me to go to the booth. We had deliverables while we were there for our clients. Yeah. Right? So you were like, hey, dude, this is great. We're at the booth now, but at 10:30, we got to go over to Dynapac because you have a shoot right there, right? Yeah. And looking back...
Meanwhile, we had Brent, our mutual friend, and a guy that does, media and camera work too, come along with us on that trip so that he could be over in the demo area while we had to get our deliverables in
Crafco.
Yeah, well, we were getting deliverables in the actual event space. So
yeah, and I think that's expected. Like, it's not like I'm describing an incredible lift. I just didn't realize, like, maybe I was putting myself in a precarious situation that maybe left me vulnerable to something that I hadn't really kept an eye on. And I didn't know that, but in hindsight, looking back at it, like I would, this about me, I quote unquote would panic sometimes and just be like, dude, we got to do this. Chris would be like, you're like freaking out. Mm-hmm. I'm like, well, you don't understand. Like, what, we can't fail at this. We can't fail at this. So I think I was putting a lot of pressure on myself unintentionally. And went after like 4 days or so, right? And I remember on Thursday, we finally got done with Pavex. And I say that, like, I say finally got done because it felt like a relief, like, whew. And Jessica Lombardo, who's a great friend of mine, I know she felt relief too, but she was like happy and excited when we went to pick our booth space and stuff for Pavex this year in 2025. And I knew there was a contrast there. I'm like, why am I like exhausted? I was visibly exhausted because I remember some of our friends coming up and being like, dude, you look dead, right? I have trouble sleeping at the events because I was worried about what was going on the next day. You stay out late, right, with the friends and the partners and whatnot.
Well, I don't, but...
You don't. And you get up early because you got these things to do. And it took a toll this year in a way that it hadn't. And I had done that in previous years, but it took a toll this year, I think, because I had a lot of more responsibility. So we got through Pavex, and I remember I got through Pavex, and I was like, something is wrong. Like, I felt disconnected a little bit. We kept recording podcasts. We geared up for World of Asphalt, which we already had kind of in the books and ready, right? Mm-hmm. It was loaded. All we had to do was just show up and get our stuff there, and we were good to go. And it didn't take very long at World of Asphalt, and I felt like I did on the last day of Pavex. I think, like, the end of day one, I was done. I was like, yeah, this ain't cool. But we went through the paces, took a lot of the pictures, did a lot of the deliverables, got to hang out, go to certain events, talk to people. Eli was with us, so that was another added thing. Like, where's this kid? Where's he? Because he's a wanderer, right? You'll find him like on top of the Aztec mill, moving levers and stuff. I'm like, dude, we had a place to go like 15 minutes ago, right? He's like, oh yeah, I remember you told me that now, right? Or Hartown, he'll be with Matt Stanley at Raised on Blacktop booth, shooting the shit with him or his dad. So that was a lot to kind of take that on too, but it was exhausting. And I was like, dude, maybe I'm dehydrated. I can't focus. I'm having like cognitive issues on being present. Something's up. And I remember I went and got like
the IV infusion or whatever that thing was.
The hydration IV, right? And you were like, how you feel? I'm like, awesome. You're like, I think you're just thinking that you feel awesome, right? Because you still look like shit. Maybe it did help, maybe it didn't. I've had it a couple times since then. It didn't feel as good as it did the first time, so I think you're probably on to something. Never does, yeah. So I think you were probably onto something. But I remember we batched a lot of podcast episodes because the year before at Wiscote, we were trying to do it over the summer months while I was working, and that was incredibly intense on me. And I remember telling you, like, dude, I cannot do that again. There's no way. So I knew that I'd put a lot on myself the year before. And then we batch recorded a lot to free up the summer months. And it just so happened after World of Asphalt, when we would go to record, I can remember we had, 5 or 6 more to record before the asphalt season hit. And I remember telling you, like, something's up. Like, I can't even hold a conversation in an interview the way that I had before. Something's up. I can't even focus on the next call. I can't think about what I would ask outside of the conversation, in proximity questions. And you're always supportive. You're like, well, don't worry about it, man. We're going to be done with it pretty soon. You know, I can edit some of this stuff, and it ain't that big of a deal. We got plenty batched up. You ain't got to record again until late next year, if at all, right? Because we just got so many recorded, which I'm thankful for. And then during this year, Kelly and I, which, you know, we've talked about this quite a bit, Kelly and I finalized our divorce this year. Nikki and I started a relationship this year. I was traveling back and forth to Nashville while doing Wiscoat. Blacktop Banter, you took the reins on and took care of, so I didn't really have too much to worry about. The content changed a little bit at Blacktop Banter because I couldn't focus enough and find the time enough to record the pieces of content that, like I used to with me personally there. Thankfully, we still hit our deliverables because of you, but it got to be like mid-July, and there were some pressing court dates coming up. There were big projects coming up. It rained for a month and a half, so we were behind on our work schedule. And I had some events coming up that I wanted to go to in Nashville with Nikki and different things. And I think there was just a culmination of that. My family has high blood pressure history. And I just remember I had trouble after the 4th of July, went to church on Sunday, and as I was standing at church, like I needed to brace myself a little bit. And I was like, man, I'm really dizzy and I really can't focus. Like something's up. And then we got out of church and I was like, I think I probably should go to the hospital. Like this is like probably the worst it's ever been. And I remember I say it like this, but I could feel my pulse in my body. I was like, something's up here. Ironically, I call Kelly to take me to the hospital. I'm like, hey, don't freak out. I need you to drive me just in case. I think something's up here. I'm pretty calm and cool. Kelly was like, my God, what's wrong? Right? Because I never go to the hospital. She's like, oh my God, what's up? And she's like, okay, I'll be there. I'll be there as soon as I can. So she comes, gets me, we go to the hospital, and I go in, and they're like, take my blood pressure, and they're like, hey, your blood pressure is like 188 over 128 or 132, something like that. And we really need to get some medicine in you because, like,
you're going to die.
You should be
basically.
Like you should be having a stroke right now.
Yeah.
And I had always carried like 140s for my blood pressure on the top. So I really was like, whatever. It took a minute in there of the nurse asking me some questions about if I have stressful things in my life, if I've had any added stressors. Kelly and I laughed because when she's like, do you have any added stressors in your life? And I looked over at Kelly, and Kelly was like, I'm going to go get a drink of water, and left the room. And I had to tell the lady, I'm like, yeah, we're going to get divorced like next month. That's going to be my soon to be ex-wife. And, she kind of giggled. She's like, oh, that's great. Ask that question, huh? And I was like, yeah, but there was a lot of things that led up to it. And she's like, well, how do you handle all this? And I'm like, I just push through. Like, I just go through. And she's like, Marvin, I think that she's like, I'm not a therapist, but I think that might be having an effect on you. You should probably talk to somebody. You had recommended a couple times, so you had kind of seen some things where you were like, hey, you should find better help or find a different one.
Yeah,
right?
Talk therapy, I think, as someone who's, you've talked a lot in the last 6 months probably about mental health, and the stigma, especially in industries like this, blue collar industries especially. And as a man, you just grin and bear it. You just get through it. That's what it is. And having gone through my own sort of battles with mental health and anxiety, and knowing that talk therapy really was helpful for me, just being able to have a third party there that doesn't know you personally, but is there to listen, really, to be able to get things off your chest that maybe you can't share with your partner, a burden that you can't put on your kids that you just don't have anybody else to talk to about, or, you just have the ability to sort of openly just put it out there, can be really helpful, especially if you have a therapist who can give you some guidance and some steps to sort of like regain your life, I guess I would call it. Yeah, so we had some conversations about that, and I was like, what do you have to lose? You know, just like get on there and try it and talk to somebody. If it doesn't work, then it doesn't work. But at least then you know that you gave it a shot. So
ironically, when you look back at some of the guests and stuff and some of the stuff I was curious about before like the issues actually hit me, like even before the conferences, we had Dr. Vince Huffelli on.
Yep.
Right. We had Dr. Aaron Craw from U-Turn Health join us to talk about all these things. So I was already curious. So something must have already been saying, hey, dude, we got something going on here. But I had a video shoot with Titan, remember? Yeah. And you were like, I was like, dude, I don't feel good about this. Like Titan's coming down. It was like maybe a month after I was in the hospital, and I knew I had cognitive issues. The nice thing about Wiscoat is it was pretty mundane work. Like the quotes would call in. I could go measure a parking lot and send a quote out. Kyla took care of it from there. She's like, hey, just show up here on Tuesday. these are the 3 jobs, and seal coat. Well, seal coat's easy, right? Crack fill and seal coat, that doesn't take too much of my mental acuity to perform crack filling and seal coating and line striping. But it does when we're in conversation, we're doing creative stuff, we're planning out. And I had already been given the script for the Titan thing. It changed a little bit because it took a year for us to get to this point. But I had a lot of trouble on that shoot. A lot of trouble. And I feel bad for Jeff and those guys because I think the expectation was a lot higher of how I could perform. We got through it. The content turned out fantastic to the ordinary eye, right? But when I watch it, it's tough for me to watch because they would give me just one line and I'd be like, what was that line? And I was like, shoot. Well, then I could remember 2 lines and then couldn't remember the rest. There was a lot. Whoever edited it, God bless them, because they dealt with a lot. But I remember talking to you afterward and I'm like, dude, there for sure is something wrong with me because this is not how I've performed when it comes to whether it's moderating, podcasting, doing shoots, any of that. This is not how I am. And that really was the catalyst for me to seek some help and seek a therapist, right? Because I was like, if I can't unwind this thing and it's only getting worse, this is going to be a tough pull, right? I don't know where I'm going to end up.
Well, you can look, I think you looked out there and you had people in your network, in your life that you looked out and you said, I don't want to end up like that.
Yeah.
That person didn't get the help that they needed and it's having long-term effects and I don't want to do that to me. I don't want to do that to my family.
Yeah.
I need to at least take the steps to try to right this ship.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think I went into therapy thinking, well, if this does work, and I did get on a blood pressure medication, right? Since then I've got off of it within the last couple of weeks, which is really good. It's nice to have that under control somewhat. The strong coffee you made might have me have to take a pill here today because it's lit. I went into therapy thinking, well, if I get sorted out, we can take care of this. Mm-hmm. We can handle it, man. We'll keep her going. And I had my first kind of session, and I called you afterwards, and you're like, how was it? Like, I just kind of got to know me. And you're like, yeah, it ain't going to happen day one. Like, you're going to have to talk to this guy for a little bit. So after about a month or so, I started doing some practices and different things that he asked me to do, and I noticed that I got a little more calm. And then it hit me, I asked the question of like, well, how long do you think this will take before I can go back to like doing what I was doing? And my doctor, his name was Dr. Sapp, he was like, Marvin, we're not sorting this out so that you can put yourself back to where you were. He's like, I'm sorting it out so that you don't say yes to those things and you're cool where you are. And that was when it first hit me, like, I'm going to have to make some changes. Like, I'm going to have to make some hard choices and make some changes and see where we go from there. Did therapy again, kept therapy going through September. I think early October was when I told you, I was like, Dr. Sapp did a great way of analyzing this for me. He was like, so when you go out and look at a parking lot and you know what it's going to take for you to get it from when you step your first foot onto it to quote it to the finished product when the customer's handing you a check, which doesn't happen very often nowadays. Most of the time they do transfers or whatnot or pay by card on the invoice. But he was like, the steps you need to take to get from there to there. He's like, if you knew all the things, but they weren't in order, you wouldn't get the finished product of what you're going to do. He's like, that's what's going on in your brain right now with all you have going on. Mm-hmm. There's all these pieces and they're all over the place. You're unorganized in the process to get from one thing to the other. You're going to have to not do some things so that we can see what you have to do and then organize those, because those are mixed in right now with the things that you want to do, the things you're obligated to do because you said yes and all these things. We're going to have to really strip this down. And that's what I started to do. Started to strip a lot of those things down. I thought, well, when the divorce happened, I was going to, when it was finalized, I'd feel a lot of relief. Yeah. No, there's a lot more organizing and different things that needs to get done. And there's things that need transferred and bank transfers and names being signed over and beneficiaries, all this other stuff. So that opens up a whole nother book, right, of things. And that was when I realized like something has to give. Wiscoat is really the foundation for everything I get to do in my life. So I can't, and pays the bills essentially. I can't let go of that. Outside of that are my personal relationships, right, with Nikki and Eli and Liz. I'm not going to let go of those. And that only left, I don't have much else going on, right? So that left Blacktop Banter essentially and everything we had there. And that was kind of the first cut. And thankfully, I hadn't had to record a lot of podcasts, so we knew what we needed to do and how to land the plane. And I think that's how we got to the point of like, okay, this is how this needs to look and what we need to do going into it. How does that look when we shut the doors? What happens after that? And that became more clear as we finally finished with, we're not going to, this is going to what the finish line is. It's here. Let's get us to there. You think that sums it up pretty well? Long-winded.
Well, it was a multifaceted sort of process to get there. So what are your plans then with, I guess, the brand of Blacktop Banter now that the podcast is going to be done, now that, there's not going to be any more sponsorships, now that you're not going to be doing sort of, I guess, paid appearances at trade shows necessarily. Yeah. So are you going to close it down? People are probably wondering, are you going to close it down? Is it going to be done completely? What's happening with the success group? Yeah. All that kind of thing.
Yeah, that's a good question. All right, so we'll do one at a time. Yeah, so we plan to just shut it down at the end of December, which I'm guessing this is airing.
This end of December.
Perfect. Yep. Yeah. So that's the plan. It's like we're going to stop that. An email went out to all of our partners saying, hey, you're not going to get any more invoices. We're not going to create content with Blacktop Banter and doing all these things. The only things that I've committed to is Jobber. They've been great. They're nothing but supportive, easy. They really didn't bat an eye when I was like, hey, Blacktop Banter's done. They're like, yeah, but Marvin is still going to live, right? We can still do some stuff with Marvin. And I was like, yeah, for sure. And I think it's a good exercise. It doesn't stress me out to do one, and it keeps me in rhythm. And Jobber's an easy one to do. I enjoy the content with them. I love working with their team. We use Jobber, every facet of Jobber. It's a great asset to our company. So that one's easy. Shannon and Mac over at APE Magazine, they were like, hey, we understand. And I was like, well, I still kind of want to write. So Shannon was like, well, you're going to have to, do you want to rename it? You want to rename the article or whatever? And I was like, yeah, but you got to give me a month. I don't really know what I'm going to do with it yet and what I'm going to name it or how it would be. But of course, in Marvin style, it has to be catchy. Blacktop Banter, Wisco Wednesday. So you got to give me a little bit. So I'm going to keep writing the article for APE. And that's it, really. Those are my two only real commitments. Ironically, I started to create more content lately, the style that I want to, right? It's a little more creative. It's a little more personal. It's a little more about my insights. There's not necessarily, there's not sponsors back like, hey, try the new blah, 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 and go to yada yada.com for whatever. You know? It's more like, hey, most of the content now is something that I thought about or I had thoughts about that led up to the struggle or I found out during the struggle. We can't not point out that I had to record 4 or 5 more podcasts from November to the end of December here. Chris was like, hey, we're shy. And of course, in my fashion, I'm like, well, we got deliverables for clients still, which you reminded me of. You need to get these clients on. We need to get this stuff. And we reached out to clients to try to get them to get on the podcast before the end of the year. Some did, some didn't. But we still recorded the podcast so that we could put our ads out on the podcast for our clients. So there's still that commitment there. But what I found was from the Titan shoot, I didn't do anything after that as far as recording. And then when you were like, hey, I need you to record these ones, I kind of procrastinated because I was like, I'm going to be honest with you. I was scared to get in front of the camera, in front of the microphone again. I thought, I'm just going to jumble this up. It's going to sound like shit. I'm going to be super embarrassed. There's podcasts that are in our log. We were joking before we got on here that I need to do the lost episodes thing because there's some where they just weren't good. And they weren't good because I wasn't good. And I got in front of some of the, I recorded first one, solo one, to kind of like a catch-up one. And then we had Nick Brunon from Schwarze. Did one of my favorite recordings ever. We had a great conversation. It was super interesting. I'm in old fashioned, right? I got curious, made some funny stories come together. And
the armadillo sucked up into the hopper.
Yeah. Do you think they would curl into a ball when it gets sucked up?
For sure. As soon as that thing came over and they felt any sort of wind, they're balling up.
Dude, it'd be great to have a camera inside the hopper and watch it go. Wrestle in the, nestle in the corner. But anyways, it went really great. I digress again.
Put some pinball, bouncers in there. Exactly.
Get the lights.
See who can get the high score. Yeah, exactly. There you go.
Yeah. All right, Joe, make that happen. We're coming to Huntsville. That one happened, and then I had Michael Blake on, and Michael Blake, who I've had talk with me previous times on some Blacktop Banter stuff, in my mind is notoriously nervous for it. Not notoriously. I don't want to say it. Regularly nervous when I interact with him on camera. Off camera, he's the chillest dude you ever met. But you turn the camera on or the mic and people get iced up a little bit. We had the most free-floating conversation we ever had. We got done and Mike was like, that was easy. Dude, that was just like me and you talking. I was like, yeah, I've tried that to tell you that for the last 4 times we've done this, And it went really good. So then I remember I messaged you. I'm like, dude, they're going really well. Like they're doing really good. And then you were in the office. You were here with me I sat a desk up next to my desk that you've somewhat taken on when you're here. And I remember we were talking about somebody else's content and business profile, kind of with what we do, right? They wanted to start a network of podcasts or whatever. And I remember you saying, dude, we could totally do that with Blacktop Banter. And I remember just a chill coming over me. And I'm like, no way. Nope.
Yeah.
Nope. Right? And you were just like, I remember you looking at me. I'm like, nope, not doing it. It's like, it's one of those things where like once bitten, twice shy.
Yeah.
Where I just was like, immediately that gave me anxiety, just the thought of it. And before, when you and I first met, and this is what I felt so bad about, when we first met and we had that whiteboard at the Blacktop Banter office, we were dreaming on that bad boy. And we would find our way to that end result, right, when we were up there. And that was super exciting. Now, if that were to happen, it gives me anxiety because of what I went through to get to those first ones. I thought was great, but it wasn't. And Dr. Sapp was like, Marvin, I got you figured out. You have panic disorder. He's like, and most of the time that initiates your fight or flight response, which is great if you're in the wild and you're being attacked by a wolf and you run up a tree and then the wolf leaves 5 to 10 minutes later, hopefully, if there's more food around.
I think it's a wolf, not a bear.
Yeah, I can take a wolf.
Well, a bear climb up the tree after you, so.
Yeah, I can't take a bear.
No.
I can't I don't think I can take
cub.
a bear on the ground, whether it climbs a tree or not. And first of all, I would have to climb the tree in both these scenarios.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know.
You're not a tree climber?
I don't know if that's going to happen. Yeah, I could with a ladder probably. But I digress once again, right? He's like, I don't know how long like you've been in fight or flight response, but from what you've described to me over our initial meetings, I don't know that you ever came out of it. Like most of the time, you're thinking about business, work, deliverables, what you need to do all the time. And I had sleep issues. Like I remember I would tell you, dude, I can't sleep past 2 a.m. I'll go to bed at like 10:30 and I can't sleep past 2. That started to have a problem. I started to have an issue with that. So, it got to be where he was really wanting to be like, we have to get you out of this fight or flight response in order for your brain to be able to sort these things out. Therefore, you have to recognize when something is stressful or makes you anxious because it's going to send you into a panic attack, essentially. And I've done a good job, I think, of recognizing that and saying no to certain situations and saying yes to certain situations. I'm still working on it some because there's still that old dog where I'm like, ooh.
I think you're like a lot of contractors or business owners. You when I first met you, well, not first met you, but when we first started working together, like 2 years ago, you were a say yes to everything guy. Your mindset was very much like, especially when it came to Blacktop Banter, was like, I got to offer all the things to everybody, whatever they want, I'm going to do it because that's what they expect, and I want to be able to deliver on that. Yeah, and I think, we can talk about structure that we set up and things that we did to sort of like relieve some of that, but I think a lot of guys feel that way, especially a lot of guys that are creating content for their businesses. And I think where you've gotten now, maybe through a mixture of therapy, a mixture of a lot of life changes, maybe some existential crisis type stuff that you went through and like reflection on who you are, the kind of life that you want. I think that you've sort of become a person who is okay saying no. And you're looking at no, it's not a negative. No doesn't mean like never, or I'm not interested, or like I don't want anything to do with this. It's just, if it doesn't excite me, like really excite me, then it's a no. Yeah. Because I don't have time to do everything. I can't do everything. And the things that I am involved with, I want to be really excited about because I know that I'm going to put all my time, effort, energy, attention into that because it deserves that. And because I care about the work that I do and how that reflects back onto me. I think to see that progression has been really great. And I think it's seemingly caused you to have a calmer mind, a calmer demeanor, and I think part of letting go of Blacktop Banter, was a part of that process for you.
Yeah, I think I don't find myself getting necessarily like really excited about very much now, but I do know that I'm not grabbing onto the things that give me anxiety.
Yeah.
So it's like this slow progression. Like there wasn't room for anything to really make me excited because I had so much on my plate, right? Like I can't imagine what it really would have taken for me to be like during all that. Right.
I don't think there could have been. No. I think you were so busy playing like whack-a-mole that had something exciting come on, you'd have been like, I don't know how to, I'll make it work. I'll try to figure it out, but I don't know where to fit this in because I got 50 things I got to take care of.
Yeah.
Like this can't get as much attention. This can't get the attention that I would like to give it.
Yeah.
Because I'm excited about it, but I can't give it that because I've got 50 things that I'm trying to like handle.
Yeah. I'll give you an example and then we'll talk about the success, which just kind of plays into it a little bit. I was at Dirt World Summit. Dynapac was there. I was there with Jamie and Jennifer Bishop and Allison. It was great, right? They have a great team there. And they gave away a roller that got donated to Dream on 3.
Yeah.
And then the contractors auctioned it through Purple Wave Auction. Contractors got to bid on it in the auction. That was super exciting, right? You know why it was so super exciting for me? I had no bearing on it. I turned my phone on. I told Allison, I was like, hey, I'll turn this phone on and go live. Maybe we'll get some views, right? Sat it there and Allison looked over like super excited, you know, because like all the members are popping up and then the followers are popping up and they're talking about it. And, you know, the roller went for ridiculous money. And then Purple Wave looked over at Jamie. He's like, let's do 2 of them. You know, $5,000 less goes to the second bidder. And Jamie's like, do it. You know, so it was a good number.
That's
you know,
awesome.
I know Dynapac doesn't like for me to say the number, but it was close to, if there was $1 million and then there was a middle spot, it was close to the middle spot.
Got it.
Which went to Dream on 3, which allows them to do some amazing things. But that was one of the most exciting things I had done all year, which it shouldn't have been because we did some awesome stuff, right? But it let me know, like, because I was free of a lot of burden, I was able to enjoy that. In my opinion, Dynapac CC900G roller is the best roller on the market for driveway and small parking lot paving contractors. The seismic technology in these rollers is unbeatable for the smoothness and compaction they provide. Take my word for it, or visit Dynapac.com to find a dealer near you.
Hey Blacktop Banter fans, this is Michael with Aquafault. Aquafault is the only permanent repair material for asphalt and concrete that uses water. And installation is simple. Just pour, add water, and tamp. It's that easy. An Aquafault repair can be open to traffic immediately and fully sealed within 24 hours. Visit aquafault.com to learn more.
I work closely with KM International to design what I believe is the best seal coating unit on the market. The Blacktop Banter Edition seal coating unit, available in both 550 and 700 gallon versions. Learn more about the unit by visiting kminternational.com.
Quick startups, fume-free, automatic agitator shutoff, a splash-proof lid, and pumping on demand. These features are essential for any serious asphalt maintenance contractor. Elevate your game with the Crafco SuperShot line of melters by visiting crafco.com today.
Hi contractors, it's Kyla from Wiscoat. We use Stencil Plus for all of our pavement marking stencils. You can save 10% on your stencil order by using code BB10 during checkout at stencilplus.com or by calling 877-372-6055.
In the past year, Jobber has been our CRM of choice at Wiscoat, and it's made our world exponentially better efficiency-wise. For our small seal coating company, it has helped build the solid foundation we can scale from. Jobber is now a sponsor of Blacktop Banter and helps bring this show to you. With this partnership, Jobber is offering an exclusive savings to BB listeners of 20% off for 6 months. To take advantage of this, find the Jobber link in the show description and get to improving your process today. I've been talking about Nikki a lot on the podcast lately. I think carving the time out to do things with her and then realizing like sometimes if I wasn't present, she knew it. Right. And I was like, okay, I have to make sure I become more present. I become more present. It allowed me to become more present in my life.
There's a big difference between me being like, yo, you're on your phone a lot, and her being like, you need to get off your phone and be present with me.
Well, she looks better. I'm going to be honest.
Well, yeah, that's fair.
Yeah. But that's more persuasive. I'm going to be honest with you. When it comes to the success group, those guys a lot of times were always there for me, but I felt a responsibility to our guys in the success group as well. There was roughly 30 of us. Thank God for Kyla Schoen and Cam Roberts for hosting the extra 2 calls each month. I somehow made my call work every month. I don't know if I was there, if the guys enjoyed it or not. We had guests that come on. Hopefully I interviewed them well and we got through it. But even that one call added anxiety to me and stress, which was just ridiculous, right? When it's an hour-long call. But the logistics of being there and me having to carve out the time for my night when I should have been calmed down, it made me anxious sometimes.
Is that because it's like an unknown? Like you don't know what's going to happen, or
no? I think it was just the responsibility. Like this, I have to do this. I've committed to these guys. I have to do this. I'm not saying I don't want to do things that I have to do, but I felt like
you don't want to be beholden to somebody else's.
Right.
You want to be able to do it when you want to do it.
And expecting me to be there. And that was tough for me. And I didn't know that early on. It was fun when we first started, but then after a while, it got to be almost like a job. Bryce Harem started taking the fourth call in like September, maybe August. So that helped out. He added a fourth call to it. But I knew I didn't want to keep doing it. I was telling you, like, I don't want to do this. I remember some of our initial conversations with consultants and stuff, and they're like, you guys need to do the educational thing. And I remember I told you, like, dude, I do not want to be an educational thing. I don't look at myself that way. I know I don't know everything. I'm curious and can bring the information to people through the podcast or through content, but I'm not here to teach people. That's not my thing. And I felt like the success group, when people would get there, they kind of were looking for that versus this is a mastermind where we talk. So I didn't really want to do it anymore. And I kind of started thinking with BB ending, I'm definitely not going to do this anymore. What do we do? And what do I do? We had great partnership with TCS throughout the years. So we have 8 members of BBSG that are TCS members. We have TCS members come on and would join us on calls and whatnot. And so the guys knew a lot about TCS. One of the newer things that came up through my friend Jason Richmond at BuildWit was BuildWit Connect. He kept telling me, hey, man, I would love to have you in there. You don't have to do a whole lot. He kind of knows my whole situation went through. He's like, you got to do a whole lot. Just be there. And then when somebody says something, chime in with what you know. And if not, ask a question. So somebody else answers. Like, all right, cool, I can do this. So, my call, I thought the guys are familiar with TCS. They know TCS. They don't know about BuildWit Connect. I can't explain it. I can explain TCS in these individual calls. I reached out to the guys at BBSG and was like, what do you want my call to be on? Because this is what's going to happen. I sent them an email saying, this is what's going to happen with BBSG. We have some time here. You all want to transition. I want to give you options to transition with TCS, BuildWit Connect, wherever you want to go. A lot of the guys are getting mentorship and coaching one-on-one now from BBSG, from people outside of BB. And I was like, I just want to give you what options you want. They were more curious about BuildWit Connect. Jason, come on, let us through it. Did the call. I explained that that's where I'll be. If they want to go, great. If they don't want to go, great. Don't really matter. But we've had a few of the guys already transition over to BuildWit Connect. Some were like, wait, we're going to go TCS, see what it is. I think they're in great hands either way. And if they don't get something from one or the other, at least they know the other's theirs. That's what's going to happen with the BBSG. We're ending it essentially same time that we end BB.
And then you'll just be in these groups sort of just being one of the guys, or are you going to take like sort of a...
I don't want to really take a... I don't want to take a role where... I sound like such a child. I don't want to take a role where I have responsibility. Okay? Like, if my room's messy, I just want to shut the door, and no one's allowed to go in there.
Okay.
Right? But I know, just by osmosis, I'll be chiming in, I'll be bringing value in a very simplistic way. So I'm hoping, I've done that with TCS. Thank God for those guys. They invite me to the events and invite me in on conversations and whatnot. I've been able to attend those. And
shout out to Brian and the team, by the way.
Yeah. And those guys. I talked to Daniel Good on the way back. Daniel from Nashville yesterday. Daniel's like, I thought I was dying. He's like, I coughed so hard I cracked a rib. He's like, I've been in the hospital for like 10 days. He's like, I thought I was dying. I was like, well, if you are, my condolences. If not, I'll see you soon, bud. But they've been great. BuildWit Connect, I'm very excited for. I'm excited because you and I have had a lot of conversations about what BBSG could have been and would be if we had the structure, the organization, and the team.
And the desire. I think that was the big thing.
The desire and the team to build that. Because we knew that if we built it as contractors would like it, more than likely, right? I'm talking with Jason, he's like, we want contractors in Connect so that they can help build the community because we're not going to build it. We want you all to build it. And I think that that's what excites me is that there's some stuff there that if we were able, if I already know that this is happening because I had a call yesterday with Tracy at BuildWit and she's like, hey, I'm super excited about doing this with you. Jason's like, I want you to meet with Mark. Should I do Jason impression?
Yeah, for sure.
Hey, bud. He's like, Tracy, I want you to meet with Marvin. I'm super excited. I love it. Anyways, that's the Jason impression. Anyways, he was like, I want you to meet with Marvin. I think Marvin's got some good ideas, but we need to get him in there, get him looking at it, and then you two can implement something or at least bring me in and let us know what we need to look like. And I think we're going to create an atmosphere where I can just tell these guys, hey, I'm part of this. Hop in there with me. We're having some conversations. Not... we offer this, I offer this, I do this, I do that. It's not me, it's the community that's offering it and being there. And if I get to be there and invite people in and enjoy the atmosphere, and it leads them onto something else, whether that's a different coaching platform or whatever, or some of the Build Wit training stuff that's in there. Like a lot of our guys in BBSG, they want legitimate like equipment training.
Yeah.
Right. On the site training.
Yep.
They offer that at Build Wit, certified training, and they can have those options if they need something else, video production or whatever. I know One Team Media does that at TCS. Build Wit also offers production and whatnot. They have all these options, and I'm just excited that our guys have those options, right? And it's going to be nice to be able to be in Build Wit Connect, be excited about things, post about those things, be there with some of my friends, right, that have already signed up, and us partaking in different events and whatnot. Some of us are going to the John Deere workshop next year, and we're already excited about that, right? That first form event.
Maybe you'll meet Jackson, man. That little kid that does all the John Deere footage.
Yeah.
That little star. You might be there.
Well, if we does, we're doing it on some paving equipment and
There
some
you
stuff.
go.
See what he's got to do. He's good on the farm stuff.
Yeah, that's what he knows, man.
Yeah.
He's an expert.
Yeah, we need to find that guy from the dirt world, the little kid from the dirt world that's like, we got this excavator, we got the John Deere 80, we got JD 80, we're pushing this back. That'd be great. Yeah.
That's a big old bucket right
That's
there.
a big old bucket right there. Whoop. Ain't as good as my bucket, though. Yeah. I think I'm excited about that. I'm excited about what we got. You know what I'm really excited about? I'm excited about Pavex, World of Asphalt. I'm going to be speaking at World of Asphalt in a very limited sense. There's a community area. They want me to talk about what I went through to have a successful asphalt maintenance business. Very easy lift. There's no booth. There's no events. There's no clients there for me to get. We had deliverables last time. I had to go to booths and record and do whatever. I don't have to do that. I think when I take off the you have to do this, I enjoy doing it again. It's the craziest little thing. So it's not like I was doing things different than I had before when it come to content. Granted, we were doing some cool stuff and different things. But I was looking at NPE 2018 video yesterday that I recorded. It's on the Wisco channel.
Yeah.
If you want to go look at it, enjoy.
We'll link it below.
Please, God, don't. Part 2 is great. I was with Marco Mena, and I sent it to him because Marco Mena sent me a video of him at Cleveland 2018. Him and Kev McGarvey, and Kev's like, National Pavement Expo, and he's holding up 2 snowballs because we're in Cleveland, and it was just shitty. And then I sent him that video, which I hadn't looked at. But I was looking through it. I'm a lot thicker.
Yeah.
I have glasses. Marco Mena's like, holy shit, you're Benjamin Button. He's like, you wound back the clock these last few years, bud. But what I noticed is how excited I was. I was speaking at that event, but I didn't have any sponsors. We didn't have any partners. I didn't have any deliverables. I was just excited, dude. Like, I'm like, dude, look at this equipment. We got old school stuff. We got new school stuff. I could show everything because I wasn't exclusively bound to showing one thing,
Sure.
right? When in the content that I've created lately, because I have to do it, I've enjoyed doing it more. And I'm excited that I'm going to be at these events. And if I want to show something cool, bro, I'm just going to show something cool. And the community's going to like it and love it and see it there. And they're going to be like, well, show me this, show me that. And I'm going to be able to do that. That's exciting for me. Like, for me, I'm about to have fun. Like, I know I'm going to have fun at a show. Again, Equip Expo in Louisville, Nikki and I went. I enjoyed that a little bit. Dirt World Summit when we were in Texas and San Antonio, I enjoyed that a lot of bit. And then it got me thinking about Pavex coming up. I didn't do Ignite conference this year, but it got me thinking about Pavex in Chattanooga. I'm stoked. I signed us up the other day. Me and Eli are taking 3 classes. Eli's going to be in Mark Estrada's class, Cam Roberts' class, and I think Steve Brainey's class.
Oh, nice. Wow.
Yeah, so I'm going to be an introduction to sweeping because I've never taken the class, and sweeping's always made me curious. Plus, after Nick Bruin's interview with Schwarze, I really want to know about that shit. Introduction to sports courts. Never did any of that before.
Oh, yeah.
Think about doing that.
Yeah.
And then there was another class there, subcontracting, be subbed or do the subbing. I'm signing up for that one. So I'm going to be in those ones. Kyla and Nikki are doing the Women in Asphalt panel. So they're going to watch the panel. Kelsey Wright's on there, I think. Jessica Lombardo, some of the other ones.
Nice.
And then Kyla's going to be doing some management stuff. And I think Nikki signed up for that subcontracting one with me. I haven't taken a class forever. I think Jim Panzenhagen's class, 2019 maybe, I sat in on that one with Dustin Natinka. Might be the last class I ever did. Ever. Really sat through. I sat through one at Build Wit. It was, I was curious about their training. And Randy Blunt gave a presentation, and I sat through that whole one. had my laptop open, which Randy probably thought I wasn't paying attention, but I was. It was good. It felt good. It was about BuildWit training, what they're offering, what they're building out, how they can implement it. It's super cool. Like, not to plug that or anything, but I didn't realize that there's certifications that are needed to do certain dirt work in the world for heavy civil for sure. And they offer these trainings and certifications, and they come on QR codes. They can put the QR codes on their hard hat. Oh. And if somebody's up to see if they're certified, they scan the QR code. It shows their certificate. That's cool. Yeah. Super cool. And then it goes with that person, right? So even if the person leaves that company, they have that certification that takes them on to another company, right? Sure. If they move and stuff. So very cool, and very cool that BuildWit is doing it and integrating it. Had some conversations about even like seal coating training, line striping training. There's not a lot of training videos out there for that or content for that. Talked to Ben on their team, Randy, of course, and was like, dude, we could do this. Mm-hmm. And then you could do it on some of the paving stuff, right? Residential parking lot paving. There's so many areas where we can help people by just having a video out there, right? That I'm excited about that aspect of it. I haven't delved into that part because, as I said, I'm just trying to like scratch the surface of stuff, stick my toes in water and see if it feels good. Right now, I'm just hunkered down with Tracy on BuildWit Connect, and we're going to do a call after the new year and just kind of brainstorm a little bit. And if I don't have to do anything, that would be fantastic. If they're like, hey, we just need you to like stand here. Mm-hmm. Okay, I can stand there. If somebody talks to you, talk to them. Okay, I can probably do that, right? So I'm excited, man. I'm just excited about not doing anything somewhat. A lot of people have asked if I'm going to interview or do podcasts or whatnot. I don't plan on doing any of that. I think I kind of told you, and I told a lot of people, like, I want to take a year off from feeling any type of commitment in those regards. Yeah. I wanted to write a couple books, not necessarily because I think they're going to be New York Times bestsellers, but there's a couple topics that I think it would be amiss for me to not write about for my industry, the asphalt maintenance industry or asphalt industry. And I want to do it before somebody else just plugs a question in the chat GPT and says, write me a 100-page book on, seal coating in the modern era. And then they put their name at the bottom and say, I wrote this. I'd like to do that before that happens. So I'm hoping to carve out some time for that. And I think some of that's going to have to be, some of that information that's in those are probably going to have to be through interviews. So I might do interviews for the book or something like that, which is fine. That's easy.
So people might think that, we grew Blacktop Banter from about 30,000 in annual revenue to now multiple six figures in about 2 years. And we got to the point where we had things set up so that you could walk in and sit down and record, and we batched things. We batched 52 episodes over like a 3-month period probably.
Yeah. Figured out a system.
Yeah.
Really.
And I think people might look at that and say, well, how hard can that be? Like, is that all he's doing? And so, but I think a lot of people don't understand what else you were doing. We've had a lot of conversations where you're like, showing up and having conversations with potential sponsors or partners about like what the deliverables are going to be, or putting together our media kit. Like that stuff just, you hate it. So like,
and let's not forget, a lot of our partners, they had no idea how to talk to us about this because no one had done it before. Right. So
a huge part of
what coach them through
education with sponsors and partners was a huge part of what we had to do.
Thankfully, we had people resources, mentors that had done what we were doing in different areas.
Yes.
Right. And some of those were consultants that we hired to kind of show us what the framework looked like so that we could bring our partners along and through it. Because let's be honest, there's magazines and expos where these sponsors could spend their money. Mm-hmm. And what are you going to do? Get a bigger booth? Are you going to get a bigger ad?
Right, yeah.
It was when we got creative on social and on podcasting that they were like, okay, let's start putting some money here and see what happens. And I think because of the structure, I give you a lot of credit, because of the structure that was built, it was easy for them to digest and understand. Where when I did it, I just had a Word doc, I think. Mm-hmm. Like, we're going to do this, you can choose this and this and this, make the checklist, do this. And they were just like, what the F?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I remember when it's like the first week I came in, you slid me the printout of
my media kit.
It was yours, but then it was also the guys that were doing. They were like in the car racing. I can't remember who.
Beer Money Pulling Team.
There you go, Pulling Team. Yeah, that's what
Beer
it was.
Money Pulling
and it was
Team.
like,
shout out if you're on TikTok, go to Beer Money Pulling Team and
check them out.
Subscribe their channel.
But 2 years ago, I haven't seen their media kit lately. But 2 years ago, it was like 10 pages long.
Yeah.
And it had like hundreds of things in there seemingly. And I was like, I can't even comprehend this, right? Yeah. And maybe that works for them, but for us, it was like, we got to simplify this down, because at that point in time, there weren't a lot of people out there that were doing what we were doing, trying to explain to these sponsors that like a magazine or a trade show is ephemeral, right? You do that once, and then how many people are going to pick up a magazine more than one time?
Yeah.
They're going to read it, and they're going to put it in their bathroom next to the toilet and probably never look at it until they throw it out. But creating content, podcasts, putting stuff online, I mean, that's going to live on for as long as the internet exists or YouTube exists.
It's a resource. Like a lot of these
for sure
companies could link the podcast episode or a YouTube video or some other piece of social media in the bottom of an email to whoever they were sending it to. They were able to use it. It became a resource for them, right? Yeah. Versus check out our ad in wherever, whatever, right? Yeah. Or we sponsored the breakfast at whatever conference, right? No one remembers that. I don't remember who sponsored the breakfast at any conference. And I definitely don't remember who sponsors the drinks at the mixer
for sure
the hour after the show, right?
Yep.
Thank you to who does that. Pothole Heroes did it at the Blacktop Banter kickoff event. That's the only one I remember. Yeah, that's the only one I remember. Shout out Pothole Heroes.
But I think a lot of people look at that and think it's easy, though. I think they look at it and they think, oh, all I have to do is put out content. But that's couldn't be further from the truth. Like there has to be strategy, right, behind what you do. You can't just make a couple of social media videos, put them out there and think people are going to come. Mm-hmm. I like to say, it's a misquoted movie quote from Field of Dreams, which is a great movie, one of my favorites. But it's not, if you build it, they will come. It's, if you build it, will they come?
Yeah.
Like, you got to know that people are interested in what you can provide. You've got to know what it is that they want, and if you're capable of creating it.
I think where we have an advantage is I'm a contractor. Our guys are contractors. We're close-knit with a lot of contractors. What we create is what the contractor wants. Oh, right? I'm not removed. I'm not 65 and haven't been in the trenches for 25 years. We're in it. We're in it all the time. We're in it at conferences, online, wherever. We build it in a way where you and I, after a while, knew that the pieces of content were going to hit because I like them. And you're like, this is the shit Marvin loves. This is going to hit. And a lot of it, you were like, I hate that hits. Because it's, you're more cerebral than I am. I'm just like, dude, give me some cool shit. Like, I want to see the cool stuff. And we knew it was going to hit. I think that through trial and error over our time, we developed a really good system and an understanding for how to do this really well. What was exciting for me is when I was able to take my hands off of it and you were able to take control of it, and the numbers kept moving and kept going up. I was like, oh, Chris has a good understanding now of where we're at.
Yeah, I think that, you talk about the ones that hit were the ones that I was always happy when things hit and were successful and got a lot of views. I think the structure that we had with taking the podcast episode recording, breaking that up into clips, pushing that out into multiple formats, that was like a baseline that we knew we were going to be covered with content out there that was going to be helpful, useful, entertaining, educational, whatever. So that you could then go out and find interesting videos or create interesting videos that then were going to be picked up in the algorithm and taken, right? And that's gonna draw attention.
You're talking about creating brand.
Yeah.
Brand awareness. Which is what every company really wants, is brand awareness. Why? Because can you track the ROI specifically? Not really. Shout out VJ, who really wanted to know my ROI. Sorry, VJ. Hopefully it's worked out for you and you guys have seen some upward trends at Dynapac lately, which I hear has happened. But it's hard. You can't track that. We're creating brand, and we would have meetings with marketing teams and be like, what's your marketing strategy for this year? We'll help play into that so that everything's on brand with what we do to you all, but also we're going to go rogue a little bit because we want to create some cool pieces of content as well. But I think we would show up, right, and people would talk to us about a Dynapac roller, a KM seal coat rig, right? A lot of people were like, hey, you got any of those shirts for sale, the Raised on Blacktop ones? I'm like, no, that's my cousin Matt. He's over here. Like, you got to go get his stuff.
Grab us one while you're over there, too.
And see if he'll give you a couple extra. They were asking us those things because we created brand synonymity and brand awareness, right? And I think when I would be at Dynapac booth, people would be there saying they seen or heard it on Blacktop Banter, which for me was absolutely unbelievable.
Yeah,
that we were able to do that for them. But I'll let you go back to it. But I think what you're talking about is creating brand awareness.
It's the know, like, and trust factor. Well, a lot of times you get sponsors, especially when you're an influencer, right? I hate, that's kind of a dirty word that I hate, but if you're an influencer, you get sponsors or advertisers that want to know, like, what's your like how many views are we going to get? What's the engagement going to be? Well, that doesn't even tell the whole story, right? You can get 1 million people to look at a video, but how many of those 1 million people are actually interested in a Dynapac roller? And out of the people that are interested, how many actually have the funds to be able, or the need for a Dynapac roller in this instance, right? So you have to look beyond what the metrics are, and you have to really work with whoever your sponsors are, the companies that you're involved with, to make a game plan that can achieve the goals that they're after, right? If the goal is we need to get sales for this particular piece of equipment, great. Well, you're not the right person to talk about pieces of equipment that you don't use, that you wouldn't, that are way too big for the types of jobs that you do. Like you're not a heavy paver that's out doing roadways and interstates and stuff like that, right? You're doing driveway work. You can talk about that. So it's like, great. We can help you with that. That's something that I know. And my audience is going to realize, like, I have the knowledge and information on this that you can trust because this is what I do. I understand and I use these pieces of equipment, right? Yeah. So, like, that's more valuable. Like 1,000 true fans is better than 1 million people that just see your video.
Yeah. Well, that's where we lost. Like, although it was very cool to see videos run up to 20 million views and whatnot, we knew that there wasn't 20 million people going to buy a piece of equipment. I worry so much about ROI because, not that I worry about ROI, I worry about the emphasis on ROI. Because let's say the same company that worked with us puts an ad in a magazine or gets a booth at a show. And then a year later, the guy that's seen the ad decides he's going to go to his dealership and buy it. The company doesn't know that
100%.
Guy looked at the ad and bought it.
100%.
Or walked by their booth, grabbed a pamphlet, and then a year later bought a roller. They don't know that that's where his deciding factor came from. And maybe he's seen the ad, listened to the podcast, went to the show, and then decided, well, now let's divide that ROI between 3 things. But he's never going to tell you that it took all 3 of those things to do it. You're creating brand awareness.
7 points of contact.
7 points of contact.
Sometimes more.
Sometimes more.
Before
sometimes
people,
less.
Yeah.
Depending on if it hits or not. But it's very hard. All you can say is, we made X amount of money. We put this much towards marketing. It went up this much because we did marketing. Now what do we want to do? We want to repeat this, try this again. Do we want to put more into marketing? Do we want to figure out where we want to put it and try something else? Do we want to experiment a little bit? I just think, as bad as a dirty word as influencer is, ROI, I think, is dirtier for me. Because it's just like, if I put a billboard up and somebody calls me, I don't know that it came from the billboard, dude. Maybe they typed it in Google and called me. They don't tell me that they found me on Google, right? So I just hate that you get pinned. I hated that aspect as well, that we got pinned to ROI, when in a conversation we could say that any other outlet or resource, they don't know the ROI.
Yeah, and there's, this industry is, we've talked before, a little bit behind some others, like tech industry probably being one of them. There are ways that you can track some things, right? But when we would have conversations sometimes with people, it would be like, well, how are we going to, like, we can put pixels, we can put trackers on this, right? But we can only track it up to the point where we know we're sending them to your website. Beyond that, we have no idea. What are they looking at? Are they buying or are they not buying? And trying to be able to get some of the manufacturers or some of those sponsors to be able to implement that things, they don't have the staff, they don't have the knowledge to be able to do that. So, like, that's another thing. We can get you some data and information on the ROI up to a certain point, but beyond that, also it's not totally on us.
The best one we had was the BB10 code at Stencil Plus.
Yeah.
So people would listen to us or see something and type in BB10, and Jeff was like, heck yeah, dude. It was 1,200 times whatever. I made 1,200 sales or something through it. And I was like, dude, that's awesome. And then I would talk to people like, yeah, I bought Stencil Plus. Like, oh, did you use the code? No. So they listened to us and didn't use the code.
Yeah.
And bought anyways.
Yeah.
So therefore, my ROI already the ticker was off already.
For
my
sure.
stats got some gray area, right?
Yes.
So there's no foolproof. I think if that's going to be the argument, you know me, I love having conversations with people, and I like for them to leave happy. But when they would hit me with that stat, and then I would have to put into reflection all these other things when they ask it, I always felt like I pissed in somebody's Cheerios, right? And I don't want to do that. Here's the thing. You have marketing dollars. You're going to put them towards things. You're going to see if it's going to work. We want to try to do that affordably for you, but also have the understanding that we bring a lot of good value, and it's really directed in our system. There's a reason why, like, I'm not going to say the name, but we had a huge deal from one of the world's largest manufacturers of equipment on the table when I said no. right? And I knew when I said no on that one that we weren't going to make it, because I just was like, dude, if I turn this down, I'm going to turn down anything bigger than this with the hoops we got to jump through.
Yeah.
And we just weren't going to make it. But there's a reason why it works. They talk to each other. The marketing directors talk to each other and get going. Say, hey, this really helps. They're great to work with. It has great value, whatever. You know, it's worth it. And I think that's how we were able to build, right? We brought great value. We had a great product with a great structure, created great content. We were great to work with. And we were excited a lot of times about what we were creating and building.
And we knew where we could bring value.
Yeah.
And like over 2 years, you know, like our first media kit looks a lot different than the one that we ended up with at the end, because we got through conversations with, you know, our sponsors, we were able to narrow down what they wanted, what they felt was valuable, what we could actually deliver on. You know, I think in the beginning we had packages that had like, I don't even know, crazy amounts of social media posts that were just like almost impossible to keep up with for just the two of us. Like, I don't know how many people think that it's more than just us and, you know, obviously Kyla that does a lot of the administrative stuff for us too. But it's like, this is a 3-person operation. So we don't have a social media, like you're looking at the social media manager, you're looking at the videographer, you're looking at the person that's planning out content strategy and recording the episodes, you know, like doing the travel arrangements.
I remember we went, big thanks to Kasi Infrared and Reed International was one of our funner trips.
That was great.
To Boston. But I remember when we were there for a long time. We had some long days. We did some cool stuff. We got back to the hotel. I'm like, dude, we did not charge enough for this. Right? But when we were going, we're like, dude, they're going to pay us to go do this. By the time we got done, I was like, dang, dude.
Yeah.
You know, we had a great time. It was fantastic and whatnot. But you learn. You learn through the process.
And I think ultimately, when we look back, we can say, are the sponsors, the companies that we worked with, happy? I think yes. Do we have people that are coming up to you saying, thanks for what you do, I've learned something, or I've enjoyed it, or I laughed during, you know, whatever the thing was? Like, are you making a difference in people's lives in a positive way? I think yes. Do we know more now than we did when we started? Yes. So I look at that and I'm like, that's a win. You know, while obviously I would have loved to continue on, you know, just because we finally hit that stride, we had that rhythm down, we were still learning things and changing things. But I think that we got to a point where it was sort of in lockstep in a lot of ways. You alluded to it before. Like for me, if it's taking a toll on your mental health and you just don't enjoy it, becomes more of a burden than it does a joy. Then it's not worth it. Like I care more about you than I do about this podcast. And I could see the way that it was, the effect it was having on you. And I don't think any friend would want to see someone that they care about go through that. So for me, it was an easy decision. I just had to allow you to lead the process, right? To be able to be there and be like, I support whatever decision you want to make, but you're the one that has to make the decision. You know, and don't be hasty about it. Like take some time. But if you decide that, you know, this has sort of run its course and you're okay letting it go, I don't want you to be okay right now. In a year, when this thing isn't happening anymore and all the effects of not doing it, whatever that may be, have now come to fruition or realization. Like I don't want you to look back and be like, damn, dude, should have kept it going. And I don't think that's going to happen. So I can look at that and I can say, I think that you made the best decision for you and onward and upward.
Yeah, I agree with you on that. I think that I think we're going to be looking at it in a year and being like, yeah, this was the right decision. The other thing that I'll say is what we've learned. We now have a skill set and a knowledge that I don't think a lot of people have because of what we've done here and what it took to get it to that point. You know, early on when I was like, hey, I want to bring on other people. Like I want Kyle to have a spot. I want Cam to have a spot. Like I think that looking back on that was an early sign of like, I really don't know that I can be it.
Yeah.
Right. And carry all of it. And it's not a good business model for it. And I knew it wasn't a good business model because you and I spoke about this. If something happens to me, we're done.
Yeah.
Like that's it. Right. So it's the same as like Wiscoat at one point. Right. Kyla's done a great job picking up around here and picking up the slack when I've had to be gone or I was gone or whatever. I don't have to be here all the time.
Yeah.
Right. You get businesses where they get to a certain maturity. Person that was the centerpiece doesn't have to be the centerpiece anymore.
Yeah, you should be building any business that you can step away from and it can run just as fine without you.
Yeah. I mean, this one's a little harder to do that with, right? Obviously.
Well, especially where we're located.
Center oriented. Yeah, and it's oriented. You know, we compare a lot, not in size or quality, but just the structure-wise to something like Ramsey or Barstool Sports, right, where Portnoy is at the front, Dave was at the front. They get to a certain size where all of a sudden they have other creators, and it doesn't necessarily fall on them so much, and they're able to relax a little bit and do that. We never made it to that point. I mean, I don't know what we can in our industry.
I saw a video today about Dave actually talking about sort of that transition that he was looking to retire, and so at the time that they started having the conversations, obviously he was bringing in all of the money, and now he's brought in other hosts like Ken Coleman and his daughter and a couple of other ones. But they're at the point now where Dave had mentioned in it, like, you know, when this gets to 50% revenue from other sources than me, I'll feel like I can step away. Yeah. And he mentioned it, he's like, we're at 78% already. Yeah. And I was like, wow. You know, he was mentioning that the educational stuff that they do for high schools and stuff is like a $20 million business. And he's like, and if I'm not part of Ramsey Solutions on a day-to-day basis, those students aren't going to miss me. No, they're not going to care, you know? So, I mean, may we all be so lucky. But I think
Dave Ramsey, I said Portnoy. I thought you meant Dave Portnoy. That's why I said Caleb Presley.
No.
All right, we're talking about
Ramsey. But I think people might, you know, I mean, since we're talking about this, people might be wondering, well, okay, so you were working with Kyle and Cam. Why not make like a network, for example? And I think the answer to that was like, again, it goes back to it's just you and I.
Yeah. And let's be clear, I didn't start this to do that.
For sure.
Right? So for me, I had a trouble with the why and describing the why because we already did it. Like I already hit the why. I didn't start to create another business or a media company. I already hit the why. So it was really hard for me to get motivated for a while.
And for me, it was like, I'm down. I see that as a potential avenue, right? Like I think that there's a lot of potential there, but I can't do that on my own. And right now you are the face of the organization. And so like, it's going to take a lot of back end lift from you alongside me to make that happen. Yeah. And this is going to be like a multi-year thing. And I just, you know, through our conversations, it wasn't the direction that you wanted to go. Yeah. And I was fine with that.
Yeah.
So
I think I think the best thing that you and I did was communicate really well.
Yeah.
Right. Because there was a clear understanding of what I'm down for, what I'm not down for, what you're down for, and what you're not down for. And we found the best common ground to make that work for as long as we could. But like you said, it's onward and upward. Yeah. From here.
So speaking of that, you're well, I guess onward and upward. What are your plans? Like, what's your next 6 months look like?
Yeah, so spending more time in Nashville. Been at the Goldwood office quite a bit. Eli and I are going to be in Tennessee and Nashville probably pretty soon. I think he's going to switch up, go to school down there. He's really excited about that, which makes me excited about that. We're going to do some conferences, right? We're doing Pavex, World of Asphalt, the John Deere Dirt World Workshop.
I like that.
You like that? You like that bucket right there? We're going to do that one. I'm just going to write, dude. I'm going to write my articles. I'm going to record a few pieces of content there. Decide whether or not I want to start on some books and different things, and still quote, like Wisco's kind of iced right now. We're under some snow, so it's literally iced right now, which is good and gives me a break, but we're already gearing up for Wisco to do its thing. I'll travel back and forth, and we'll kind of look like it did last year. Kyla did such a great job last year. We're going to hopefully keep it going like that this year. Start quoting a little bit of work in Nashville, it sounds like. I sent a quote out last week on a striping project down there, and just kind of play it by ear and take it easy, I think, for the next year, and kind of be able to see the forest finally rather than just be stuck in the middle of it and not know what it looks like, which is a relief probably.
Cool. And then will you be back up in the summer, you think, full time, or that's going to be a sort of a wait and see kind of a thing? Or
yeah, I'll be back here quite a bit, I would imagine. So Nikki gets freed up usually. Well, she's traveling and stuff now. She's going to be speaking at the Napa conference, which is pretty cool. So I'm excited for her about that. But she travels too, so we'll just work with our schedules and whatnot. But she was up here a few weeks, 3 to 4 weeks last summer. I imagine we're probably going to be able to do that a little more this year. So I'll just keep traveling between the businesses and doing what we do. So
cool.
Yeah, it's nice. What about you?
I'm going to basically offer services that I offered to you to other people. Started consulting for other creators and contractors that are out there, helping them start, grow, monetize their content efforts, creating structure to what they're doing. I think a lot of solo creators get overwhelmed trying to put out content regularly, whether that's daily or even weekly. And I think a lot of that's because they don't have a structure in place. They sort of are just spraying bullets, hoping that something hits rather than being really precise with what they're doing. So opening up services to start talking to people that might find that valuable to sort of pick my brain about things that we did here, pick my brain, using my marketing experience and background, ways that I could probably help them and maybe just get another set of eyeballs sort of on their business and what they're trying to do, what their goals are, and try to point them in the right direction. And
yeah, I think we should point out, like, we also helped like companies that were contractor companies do that same thing. Right? We had conversations with contractors of like that they didn't necessarily want them to be the focus point, but they want their business to be. And we were like, well, this is kind of the structure that you do in order to get some brand awareness where you're locally at to make things happen too. And I think there's a valuable chunk of knowledge in there for people who really don't want to do that. I'm still the guy that has calluses on his hand from pushing the brooms, seal coating. I don't want to do that stuff. I just want to push the damn broom and spray the sealer. You know what I mean? So,
but that stuff is important.
Have to.
Yeah.
I have to, because if I'm not going to do it, somebody else is going to do it, and they're going to be top of mind.
Yes.
And I don't want them to be top of mind. I want to be top of mind.
And if you're going to spend the money on having somebody come in to do your marketing, you might as well leverage that for all it's worth, right? Yeah. Like, don't just have someone that's doing social media posts. Like, how are you actually growing your business and your influence online through content? I'm
curious to see, like, in 6 months when you and I have a conversation, what it's going to look like and what it's going to sound like, right? Because I think there's this thing where I have this feeling of, like, we live in Wisconsin here where they burn the fields quite a bit, right? In the springtime. It's in the spring, I'm pretty sure. They burn the fields and then they're black.
Yep.
And then pretty soon, like, wildflowers are popping up on that bad boy in no time, right? Or whatnot. I have a feeling like that it's something like that, right? Where we're like, okay, figured this out, burn this down. Now we're going to plant the seeds that we know we want to plant, and that's going to bear the flowers that we want them to bear. I'm curious in 6 months to a year if you and I sit down and I'm like, and you're like, what is it, bud? I'm curious about that. So I'm already excited about future conversations. And
I think I have no doubt that it won't be conversations about, hey, I'm thinking about getting back into doing a podcast. I think it'll be conversations about, this is the stuff that I'm doing. Would love to pick your brain about what your thoughts are.
Yeah, maybe. Well, I'm going to do that regardless, like, along the way.
Lose my number.
Cool.
All right. Any last thoughts? I mean, before...
I don't think so, man. This was a long-winded one. I'm sure people already tuned out and then got out of their truck and did something else and come back in, and this is still playing.
It's the last hurrah.
Yeah, last hurrah of Blacktop Banter. So it's been fun. Like, it's been a good run. We did a lot. This is why we didn't do it anymore. I'm still going to see you. We're still going to be around. You can still get a hold of us. But we're going to wipe a slate clean and then see what happens for us from here on out. And who knows? Maybe it was just the chaos needed settled and we regroup from there. I don't know.
Yeah, we'll see. Wait and find out. Tune in.
Yeah.
I just want to take a quick second. I want to thank all the sponsors that we've had, all the advertisers.
Absolutely. Allowing
us to continue to do this thing day to day for the last 4 years. Anyone that's ever listened, anybody that sent a message, whether that be a kind or a less kind comment, they've all been meaningful to us in one way or another. And so thank you for being part of the ride. I'm not raised on blacktop. I don't come from asphalt background. Marvin barely lets me get out onto like job sites. Although I like to, I'd be willing, but I think he's more worried that I would mess things up than actually be a help, which is totally valid. But I digress. I just want to say, like, thank you to everybody out there that took the time to come up and say hey, to get to know me, to welcome me in, to have conversations, to help enlighten me, to educate me about the industry, about what you all do. I understand now, why you love it. It's really the community that makes it. So thank you to all of you. I'm really thankful for those relationships and those friendships. So thanks again.
All right. For myself and Chris at Blacktop Banter, this is still where we speak asphalt. Peace. Hey everybody, Marvin here from Blacktop Banter. And if you enjoy the podcast and what we've been bringing to the industry, you can support us through a one-time or recurring donation at blacktopbanter.com. There we have a support tab. You click that and choose your path from there. If you listen on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, please do us a favor and leave a review there for us as well. As always, we speak asphalt, and thanks for your support.